The first time Eliasmar saw the Aurelian Palace, he understood why so many worlds used the same word for it: impossible. It did not rise from the ground like a normal building. It floated above a wide lake of dark glass, held up by invisible fields that bent light into soft curves. The palace looked like a crown made from moonlight and thin silver bones. Long bridges stretched out to it from the shore, and each bridge was lined with tall statues that were not quite statues. They moved, slowly, like people breathing in their sleep. Elias stood at the edge of the landing platform and forced his shoulders to relax. The air smelled clean, almost sweet, like rain on metal. A line of Aurelian guards waited near the bridge. They wore no armor. They did not carry weapons. They did not need either. Their faces were calm and empty, as if they were listening to music that no one else could hear. "Envoy Mar," his escort said softly. The escort was a conquered officer from a different species, a thin, blue-skinned woman with careful eyes. Her translator pin on her collar blinked every time she spoke. "Remember what we practiced: slow thoughts, clear intent." No sudden emotional spikes. Elias gave a small nod. "I'll do my best." She looked like she wanted to say more, but the words stayed behind her teeth. Elias did not blame her. Everyone had heard the stories. The Aurelians were psychic. Not in the way humans used the word in old movies with simple mind reading. This was a whole culture built on shared minds. Their laws assumed privacy was a childish fantasy. Their politics worked through consensus, not speeches. Their justice system used memory, not evidence. And now Elias, a human, was walking into the center of it. He checked the tiny device at his wrist. It showed his heart rate, his breathing, and a simple warning bar labeled emotional output. The bar was already yellow. He exhaled slowly until it slid back toward green. In his pocket, his personal diary drive felt heavier than it should have. It was a small object, no larger than a coin, but it carried months of private writing. It was the one thing he refused to upload to any conquered system. Not because he was hiding crimes, but because he needed one space that belonged only to him. A soft voice touched the air, not loud, not even spoken, but somehow heard. Elias' translator buzzed. "Human envoy, welcome." Elias looked up. A figure waited at the far end of the bridge. The figure was tall and pale, with long black hair that hung like a curtain. The face was smooth and beautiful in a way that did not feel human, like a mask made by someone who only half understood life. The eyes were silver, and they seemed to focus on Elias without blinking. "This is a herald," the escort whispered. "Not the queen. The queen is farther in." Elias took his first step onto the bridge. The surface felt warm under his boots, like skin under sunlight. With each step, the statues along the bridge turned their heads slightly to follow him. Their eyes were empty holes. He tried not to look at them. He moved forward in measured pace, counting his breaths. 1, 2, 3, he pictured a calm ocean. He pictured the training room back on the ship, the instructor telling him again and again that panic was not an option here. The herald glided closer, not walked, glided. The folds of their dark robe did not shift with steps. The robe simply floated like smoke that chose to be cloth. "You are Eliasmar," the herald said through the translator. "I am," Elias replied. "You carry the words of your people," the herald continued. "You carry their agreement. You carry their desire to speak with our queen." Elias swallowed. "Yes." The herald's silver eyes narrowed slightly. "Your mind is quiet, strange." Elias forced a polite smile. "Humans are not naturally psychic." The herald tilted their head. "We have studied your species. Your minds are full of noise, images, voices, conflicts." "That's true," Elias said carefully, "but you cannot hear them." The herald stared at him for a long moment. Elias felt, for a second, like something pressed gently against his skull, like a finger tapping on glass. He held his face still and his emotions flat. Then the pressure eased. "Come," the herald said. "The queen allows you to approach." The escort did not go with him beyond the bridge. That was part of the agreement. The human envoy must meet the queen alone. The Aurelians said it was tradition. The conquered said it was a test. Elias called it what it was: isolation. He walked into the palace and the world changed. Outside, light was bright and clean. Inside, it became soft and layered, as if the air itself carried gentle shadows. The halls were wide, with no visible doors. The walls looked like water held still, reflecting distant stars. Elias heard no footsteps, no voices, yet he knew he was not alone. He felt watched from every direction, not by eyes, but by attention. His translator buzzed again, matching silent signals to human language. "You will not lie." Elias paused. The words did not sound like a threat. They sounded like a simple fact. He answered anyway. "I will speak truth." "Your truth is private," the palace replied through the translator. "We will see it." Elias' pulse jumped. The emotional output bar edged toward yellow again. He forced it down with slow breathing. He continued forward. The hall opened into a chamber that was not a chamber at all. It was more like a large open space under a high dome. Above, the ceiling showed a moving view of space, like the palace carried a piece of the universe inside it. Stars drifted slowly. A pale nebula glowed like a bruise of color. In the center stood a raised platform. On it sat the queen. Elias had seen recordings, old diplomatic videos from when other species approached the Aurelian throne. None of those videos prepared him. The queen was not large, not monstrous, not covered in ornaments. She looked almost simple. Her body was thin and tall, her skin pale with a faint shimmer like fine dust. Her hair was white, long and loose. She wore a robe that seemed woven from light itself, with patterns that shifted like living frost. But it was the feeling around her that made Elias' mouth go dry. The air pressed down, not physically but mentally, like standing under deep water. His thoughts became slower. His skin prickled. His senses sharpened and dulled at the same time. He felt like a candle placed near a huge fire, still aflame but no longer the brightest thing in the room. A line of Aurelian advisors stood behind the platform, silent and still. Their faces were calm. Yet their attention was sharp, focused, and heavy. The herald moved to one side and knelt. Elias took 3 steps forward and stopped at the marked point on the floor. A faint circle glowed under his boots. He bowed the way protocol demanded. "Your Majesty." "I am Elias Mar, envoy of the human systems, representing the Aurelian Conquered Treaty Council." The queen did not speak aloud. She looked at him with silver eyes, and his translator buzzed. "You are the first of your kind to stand here." "Yes," Elias said. "You are fragile," the translator buzzed again, repeating the queen's silent meaning. Elias kept his voice steady. "Humans are physically fragile compared to many species, but we have strengths." One of the advisors shifted slightly. Elias felt a flicker of mental movement, like a crowd turning their heads. The queen's attention touched him. It was not like a hand. It was like light, like being examined by a calm sun. "Your species joins our conquered," the queen's meaning came through. "You bring trade, ships, and small numbers, yet your kind is called dangerous." Elias knew that word had been in several reports. Dangerous. Not because humans were the strongest, but because humans were unpredictable, because humans did not share minds. Because humans lied sometimes, because humans refused some kinds of control. Elias answered carefully. "Danger is often a name people give to things they do not understand." The queen's eyes did not blink. "We understand many things. I hope we can learn each other," Elias said. A soft ripple moved through the advisors. Elias could not hear words, but he could sense reaction like faint pressure changes. The queen leaned slightly forward. The light around her seemed to bend. "You do not hear us," her meaning came. "No," Elias admitted. "And we do not hear you." "That's right." Silence stretched. Elias held his posture. He kept his hands open at his sides. He remembered the training: do not clench, do not show fear, do not project anger, keep calm. The queen's gaze moved from his face to his chest, then to his wrist device. Elias realized with a small shock that she could probably feel the way it measured him. She could probably feel his heart rate without it. "You carry a second mind," the queen's meaning said. Elias blinked. "A second mind?" The queen's gaze drifted toward his pocket. Elias' stomach tightened. "The object that carries your written thoughts," the translator buzzed. Elias' hand almost moved to cover his pocket, but he stopped himself. That would look guilty. "And guilt was a bright emotion," he answered. "It is a private log." The queen's face stayed smooth. "Private." "Yes," Elias said, and this time he could not keep the tension out of his voice. "Humans keep private journals sometimes. It helps us think clearly." The advisor's attention sharpened. Elias could feel their focus as a kind of cold. It was the feeling of being surrounded by quiet judges. The queen's meaning came again, calm as water. "There is no private inside a shared mind." Elias took a careful breath. "I understand your culture, but humans are different. Privacy is important to us." "Why?" the queen's meaning asked. The question was simple, yet it struck Elias harder than he expected. "Why? How did you explain to a mind-sharing species what it meant to own your thoughts?" Elias chose the simplest answer he could. Because sometimes thoughts are not ready, he said. Because sometimes we feel things we do not want to hurt others with. Because sometimes we need space inside ourselves. The queen watched him. For the first time, Elias saw a small change in her expression, something like curiosity. You hide pain, the queen's meaning said. Sometimes, Elias admitted, not to lie, to protect. A long silence. Then the queen's meaning shifted. Your records, this log. It contains what you feel. Yes, Elias said. It contains my observations and emotions. It is not official treaty information. The queen did not respond immediately. Elias felt pressure at the edge of his skull again, stronger now, like a wave pressing against a wall. His translator buzzed and buzzed, struggling to keep up. Written emotion is strange, the queen's meaning came through in fragments. It stays, it does not fade, it can be touched without consent. Elias felt a cold spike in his chest. Your Majesty, with respect, my diary is not for... He stopped, because something happened that made his mouth go dry. The queen raised her hand. Elias did not feel her touch his pocket. He did not see her move from her throne. Yet the diary drive lifted out of his pocket as if pulled by invisible string. It floated through the air, spinning slowly, catching the soft palace light. It drifted toward the queen, perfectly controlled. Elias froze. He wanted to step forward and grab it. He wanted to shout. He wanted to demand it back, but he did none of those things, because the moment his emotions surged, the air thickened. His body became heavy. His muscles slowed. He realized with sharp fear that the palace itself could respond to emotion. His wrist device flashed. The emotional output bar jumped toward orange. Elias forced himself to breathe. He tried to think of calm. He tried to imagine nothing. The diary drive reached the queen's hand and settled into her palm. The advisors did not move. They did not look surprised. It was as normal to them as reading a letter. Elias' throat tightened. Your Majesty, he said, voice tense but controlled, that is personal. The queen's eyes lowered to the drive. Her fingers moved slightly, and Elias saw faint light thread around it, a scanning field. A translator, some psychic interface. The queen's meaning came softly. Personal is the most truthful thing. Elias swallowed. It is still mine. The queen looked up again, and the pressure at Elias' skull became deep, like a slow hand around his head. This place is ours, her meaning said. Within it all minds are accessible. Elias tried to speak. His tongue stopped. He realized with sudden terror that his jaw would not move, his lungs still worked, his eyes still saw, his heart still beat. But his body would not obey him. It felt like invisible chains wrapped around his muscles, not painful, just absolute. He could not lift a finger, he could not shift his weight, he could not even blink as fast as he wanted to. His wrist device flashed red now. The queen began to read. Elias could not see words on the drive, he could not hear her thoughts, but he saw her eyes move with tiny changes. He saw her face remain calm while something inside her attention shifted. A minute passed, maybe two, time stretched like rubber. The advisors leaned forward slightly like people watching a delicate experiment. Elias' mind screamed, not with words but with panic. His private pages, his doubts, his fears about this mission, his lonely memories of Earth, his grief for people he lost. His admiration for the queen's power written in careful lines, his small, embarrassing thoughts that were never meant for another living being. All of it was open now. He tried to fight the paralysis. His muscles did nothing. The queen's eyes paused. Her fingers stopped moving. The room felt colder. Elias watched her face carefully, searching for anger, for disgust, for anything. But the queen did not show easy emotion. She was like stone under snow, quiet, ancient, and hard to read. Then the queen lifted her gaze to Elias. For a moment, the pressure on his mind eased, and Elias thought he might be allowed to speak again. Instead, the pressure returned, but it changed shape. It became focused, centered, like a blade placed gently against a throat. The translator buzzed, and the queen's meaning came through as a single, clear sentence that made the whole room feel suddenly smaller. Do you love me? Elias tried to react. He tried to shake his head. He tried to say anything. Yes, no, what do you mean? Why did you read that? Please stop, please. Nothing happened. His body remained perfectly still, trapped inside invisible command. His mind raced, but no sound came out. The advisor's attention sharpened so much Elias felt it like needles. The queen's silver eyes stayed on him, calm and patient, as if she had asked the most reasonable question in the universe. Elias could not move. He could not speak. and the most powerful mind in the conquered waited for his answer. The silence after the queen's question did not feel empty. It felt heavy, thick, and alive, like the moment before a storm breaks. Elias stood frozen on the glowing circle, his body locked in place, his lungs moving on their own while his will pressed uselessly against invisible control. The queen did not repeat herself. She did not rush him. She simply waited. Her silver eyes studied his face with careful attention, not cruel, not angry, but deeply focused. To her, waiting was not uncomfortable. Time meant little to a being who had ruled for centuries inside a shared mind. Around them, the advisors remained still, yet their presence pressed in from all sides. Elias could feel their interest like a low hum. This was not gossip to them. This was history unfolding. Inside Elias' mind, chaos bloomed. The question echoed again and again. Do you love me? It was not a political question. It was not diplomatic. It was personal in a way that made his chest ache. He knew exactly where it came from. The queen had read his diary. She had seen the lines he wrote late at night, when exhaustion stripped away careful wording. He had written about her loneliness. He had written about how the recordings showed her always surrounded, yet never truly accompanied. He had written that her power felt heavy, that ruling a psychic empire must be like carrying the weight of every mind alone at the center. He had not meant love in the human romantic sense. Not truly. But humans use the word loosely, painfully, honestly. Admiration, empathy, care, concern, all mixed together. To the queen, those lines were something else. Her fingers tightened slightly around the floating diary drive. Light continued to thread through it as she read deeper, not just skimming facts, but absorbing emotional patterns the way her kind absorbed thought. The queen felt something she had no word for. In the Aurelian mind, thoughts were shared from birth. Feelings flowed freely between individuals, softened by constant contact. Pain was distributed. Joy was communal. No one was ever truly alone, and because of that, no one truly chose another over the whole. What she was reading now was different. Human emotion sat alone inside a single skull. It did not spread. It pressed inward. It grew sharp edges. It carried contradictions without smoothing them away. She felt Elias' fear from the moment he stepped onto the bridge. Not a loud fear, but a controlled one, folded carefully so it would not show. She felt his effort, the constant work of holding himself steady. She felt his anger at the loss of privacy, tangled with understanding. His instinct to protest, held back by duty. His desire to do well not for power, but to avoid disappointing billions of people he would never meet. And beneath it all, she felt something that unsettled her. Care, not instinctive loyalty, not obedience. Care chosen again and again, even when it hurt. The queen's advisors sensed the shift immediately. Their shared awareness trembled like water disturbed by a stone. One advisor stepped forward slightly. His meaning brushed against the queen's mind, respectful but firm. "This is dangerous," the thought said. "Human emotions are unstable. They should not be absorbed so directly." Another advisor followed, her presence cool and precise. "The subject cannot respond. The question is unnecessary. The reading should end." The queen did not respond to them right away. Her attention remained on Elias. He stood helpless before her, eyes wide, jaw tight, breath shallow. His species had no natural defenses against psychic control. He was completely exposed, yet still holding on to something inside himself that she could not touch. Choice. The queen lowered her hands slightly, and the pressure holding Elias' body tightened instead of loosening. She did not mean to cause harm. She was simply uncertain. "You cannot answer." Her meaning flowed into the translator, quieter now, not a statement, an observation. Elias' eyes flickered. He could hear her through the translator. He could understand. He could not respond. The queen felt another unfamiliar sensation rise within her, frustration. In her world, communication was instant. Silence meant refusal or deception. This was neither. This was limitation. She turned her attention inward, briefly touching the shared mind of her advisors. "What is this feeling?" she asked them, not with words, but with shared sensation. Confusion rippled through the collective. Concern, curiosity. "It is attachment," one advisor suggested carefully. "The human mind assigns value unevenly." "Unevenly," the queen repeated silently. She looked back at Elias. "Do you experience affection without expectation?" her meaning asked. Elias' chest rose sharply. His breathing quickened despite his effort to stay calm. His wrist device flashed a warning, but no one paid attention to it now. The queen felt his struggle. His desire to answer honestly, his fear of the consequences of doing so. She realized something important then. If she forced the answer, it would mean nothing. Love, as humans understood it, could not exist under control. The realization struck her shared mind like a crack. The advisors felt it. Several reacted with alarm. One withdrew slightly, cutting off some connection in a reflexive move Elias could never have imagined. The queen slowly closed her fingers around the diary drive. The light around it dimmed. "Release him," one advisor urged. "This exchange has exceeded acceptable risk." Another added, "The human is destabilizing consensus." The queen did not disagree. She lifted her other hand. The pressure around Elias' body loosened all at once. The sudden release made his knees buckle. He sucked in a sharp breath and staggered forward half a step before catching himself. His muscles burned as if he had been holding a heavy weight for too long. He gasped, coughing once, then steadied himself. His hands trembled, but he forced them to still. The room felt louder now, though no sound had changed. Elias looked up at the queen, his eyes sharp with fear and anger and something else, hurt. "You read my diary," he said hoarsely. His voice sounded strange to his own ears. "Without permission." The queen did not deny it. "Yes," her meaning replied. "I did." "That was wrong," Elias said. He did not shout, he did not insult her, but the words were firm and every advisor felt the weight of them. A murmur rippled through the shared mind. Wrong was not a concept often applied to the queen. "You entered my mind space," Elias continued. "Not directly, but through something just as private. You saw things that weren't meant for anyone else." The queen studied him. His anger was not explosive. It was controlled, painful, honest. He was not threatening her. He was stating a boundary. "A boundary," the queen repeated silently, tasting the idea. "You asked me if I love you," Elias said. His hands clenched at his sides, then relaxed as he forced himself to stay calm. "I don't even know what that question means to you." The queen's eyes narrowed slightly. "It means selection, preference, value." Elias shook his head slowly. "That's not love to us." A pause. "Explain," the queen asked. Elias took a breath. His heart still raced, but his mind was clearing now that he could move again. "To humans," he said, choosing simple words, "love isn't control, it isn't obedience, it isn't something you can take from someone's thoughts, it's something you choose to give knowing you might get hurt." The advisors reacted strongly to that. Fear spiked. Discomfort. The idea of choosing pain was deeply unsettling to a species built on shared emotional cushioning. "You wrote affection toward me," the queen said. "Yes," Elias answered honestly. "I wrote concern, respect, empathy, because I saw someone powerful and alone." The queen's grip on the diary drive tightened again, not in anger, but in something closer to vulnerability. "Alone," she repeated. Her advisors felt the word echo through her mind. Some recoiled, some leaned closer, curious despite themselves. "In our empire," the queen continued, "no one is alone." Elias met her gaze. "Then why did my words affect you so strongly?" Silence. The queen did not have an answer ready. For the first time since her ascension, she felt exposed. She had ruled through certainty. Through clarity, through the comfort of shared minds reinforcing one another. Now a single human had introduced doubt, not by attacking her power, but by showing her something missing. Choice, privacy, the ability to be seen and still accepted. The queen slowly lowered her hand, and the diary drive floated back toward Elias. It stopped in the air between them, waiting. "You may reclaim it," her meaning said. Elias hesitated. Then he reached out and took it, his fingers closing around the familiar shape. Relief washed through him so sharply it almost made him dizzy. He slipped it back into his pocket, this time placing his hand over it protectively without shame. The queen watched the motion closely. "You guard your thoughts," she said. "Yes," Elias replied. "Because they matter." Another ripple moved through the advisors. Some felt anger, others felt unease. A few felt something dangerously close to admiration. The queen straightened on her platform. "This exchange will not be recorded as treason," she declared into the shared mind. "Nor as failure." Several advisors reacted at once. "It must be categorized," one insisted. "There must be precedent." "There is now," the queen replied calmly. Her attention returned fully to Elias. "You have altered the balance of this chamber," she said. "Your species may alter more." Elias swallowed. "Is that a threat?" "No," the queen answered. "It is recognition." She studied him for a long moment, then asked, more softly than before, "If I ask again without control, without force, would you answer?" Elias' heart skipped. The question carried real weight now. He thought of Earth, of human history, of how often power took without asking. He shook his head gently. Not now. The queen did not react with anger. Instead, she inclined her head slightly. Then the question will wait, she said. The advisors felt shock ripple through the shared mind. Waiting was not something the queen did. Elias let out a slow breath he had not realized he was holding. His knees still felt weak, but he stood tall. The queen raised her hand again, and the chamber responded. The pressure eased further, the stars above shifted slowly. You will remain here, she said, not as a prisoner, as an observer. Elias frowned slightly. For how long? The queen's silver eyes met his. Until I understand, she said, what humans call love and why it cannot be taken. The advisors stirred, alarmed and uncertain. Elias felt fear, but beneath it something else grew, hope. Because for the first time since he stepped onto the bridge, the most powerful being in the conquered was not commanding him. The days that followed felt unreal to Elias, as if he had stepped out of normal time and into a slow-moving dream. He was given a private chamber inside the Aurelian palace, not a cell, not a luxury suite, but something carefully balanced between comfort and observation. The walls shifted color gently with his mood, though he tried not to think too strongly about how they knew. The bed adjusted to his body without being asked. The air stayed at the exact temperature humans preferred. It was kindness, but it was also attention. Elias understood that he was never truly alone. He could feel it not as voices or thoughts, but as awareness brushing the edges of his mind. The Aurelians were careful now. They did not press. They watched from a distance, like scientists observing a fragile reaction. He spent hours sitting near the wide window that looked out over the dark glass lake. The palace floated silently above it, unmoving. Sometimes he saw reflections in the surface that were not his own. Shapes of thought, he guessed, shared dreams. He wrote in his diary again, but cautiously. Not because he feared punishment, but because he knew now how powerful written emotion could be to a psychic species. Every word felt heavier. Every sentence mattered. He wrote about confusion, about fear. About the queen's question and the way it still echoed in his chest. He also wrote about something else, something he did not expect, curiosity. On the third day, the queen came to him. She did not announce herself. She did not bring guards. The air in the room shifted slightly, and then she was simply there, standing near the window as if she had always been part of the space. Elias rose from his seat immediately, heart jumping. Your Majesty! She turned to face him. Without the throne, without the advisors, she seemed almost smaller, still powerful, still unreal, but less distant. You are not required to rise, she said through the translator. Elias hesitated, then sat back down slowly. His muscles still remembered the paralysis too well. The queen studied him. You fear me. Elias considered lying. He decided not to. Yes, she accepted that without offense. That is reasonable. The silence between them was different now, not heavy, not threatening. It felt like a question waiting to be shaped. You asked me to wait, she said. Yes, Elias replied carefully. I have waited, the queen continued. In that time I have examined your species more closely. Elias looked up, surprised. How? I touched no private records, she said, anticipating his concern. Only what was offered freely, your public art, your stories, your shared broadcasts. Elias relaxed slightly. Humans shared stories easily, sometimes too easily. What did you find? He asked. The queen turned her gaze back to the window. Contradictions. Elias gave a small, tired smile. That sounds like us. You celebrate individuality, she said. Yet you form groups, you seek privacy, yet you confess to strangers through stories. You fear loss, yet you build bonds that guarantee it. That's accurate, Elias admitted. In my empire, the queen continued, loss is softened, shared, rarely faced alone. Does that mean it hurts less? Elias asked. The queen paused. For a long moment she did not answer. It is different, she said finally. Elias sensed the careful wording. He leaned forward slightly. Different how? The queen looked at him again. When pain is shared, it becomes manageable, but it also becomes diluted. Elias nodded slowly. And joy? The queen's silver eyes flickered. The same. That realization settled between them quietly. Elias thought of human celebrations, of music played too loud, of laughter and tears mixed together, of moments that hurt because they mattered so much. He chose his words carefully. Maybe that's why we feel things so strongly, because we don't spread them out. The queen considered that. Your emotions burn, she said. They do not glow. Elias laughed softly despite himself. That's a good way to put it. She tilted her head slightly. Your reaction is positive. It's called humor, Elias said. We use it when things are uncomfortable. Why? So we can keep going, he answered simply. Another silence followed, but this one felt thoughtful. You are an anomaly, the queen said. Elias sighed. I've been called worse. A faint ripple passed through the air. If Elias hadn't been paying close attention, he might have missed it, but he was certain now. The queen was amused. You were not chosen for this role by accident, she said. No, Elias agreed. I volunteered. Why? She asked. The question was not sharp, it was curious. Elias leaned back in his chair. Because someone had to, and because humans believe that if something matters, you don't wait for someone else to do it. The queen absorbed that quietly. Outside the chamber, the advisors were not quiet at all. The shared mind of the Aurelian court was in constant motion now, unsettled and divided. Some believed the human should be removed from the palace immediately. Others argued he should be studied further. A few, dangerously few, wondered what else humanity might teach them. The queen felt all of it. For the first time in centuries, consensus did not come easily. On the fifth day, the pressure broke. An emergency gathering was called. The advisors assembled in the great chamber, their shared presence buzzing with tension. Elias was brought in, not restrained, but escorted closely. He could feel the fear rolling off some of them like cold air. The queen sat on her platform once more, composed and distant again. One advisor stepped forward, his mental presence sharp and urgent. This experiment must end. The human is destabilizing shared coherence. He introduces unacceptable variables, another added. Privacy, refusal, emotional imbalance. Elias stood silently, hands clasped in front of him. He knew better than to interrupt. The queen listened to them all, then she spoke. He has shown us something we lacked, she said. What we lacked was not missing, an advisor argued. It was unnecessary. The queen's gaze hardened slightly. You believe that because you have never known it. The chamber stirred. Elias felt the tension rise like a storm about to break. One advisor turned his attention directly to Elias for the first time. You claim your emotions are chosen, he said through the translator. Prove it. Elias' stomach tightened. How? Share, the advisor replied. Open your mind willingly, show us this choice. A wave of alarm rushed through Elias. He shook his head immediately. I can't do that. Humans can't open our minds the way you do. Then write, the advisor said. Open your diary, all of it. Elias' hand moved to his pocket instinctively. His heart raced. The queen raised her hand, stopping the advisor. No, the shared mind reacted sharply. Shock, confusion, resistance. He will offer what he chooses, the queen continued, or nothing at all. The advisors turned inward, debating fiercely. Elias looked up at the queen, surprised. You don't have to protect me. Her gaze softened just a fraction. I am not protecting you, she said. I am protecting the question. The advisors fell silent. The queen turned back to Elias. You said love cannot be taken, show us what can be given. Elias closed his eyes. He thought of Earth again, of oceans and cities and quiet rooms filled with memories. He thought of his parents, of friends he had lost, of the fear he carried into the palace and the strange respect he now felt for the being before him. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the diary drive. The room tensed. I won't give you everything, Elias said, but I'll give you this. He placed the drive on the floor in front of him and activated a limited projection. Words appeared in the air, glowing softly. They were simple. He had written them only hours before. I am afraid, the words read. But I am still here, not because I am forced. Not because I am controlled, because I believe understanding matters more than safety. A ripple moved through the chamber, not shock, something quieter. Elias continued. That's what I can give you, choice. The queen felt it fully this time, not through forced reading. Not through control, through permission. The shared mind of the Aurelians shuddered. Some recoiled, rejecting the sensation. Others leaned closer, drawn in despite themselves. The idea of pain freely accepted, of fear faced without command, was alien and powerful. The queen closed her eyes briefly. When she opened them again, her decision was made. The human will remain, she declared, not as a subject, as a mirror. The advisors protested, but their voices lacked unity now. Elias felt his knees weaken again, this time with relief. The queen looked at him one last time in the chamber. You have changed the path of this empire, she said. Elias shook his head. I just told the truth. Truth, the queen replied softly, is the most dangerous gift of all. As Elias was escorted back to his chamber, he felt something shift deep within the palace. The Aurelian Empire, built on shared minds and perfect control, had encountered something it could not absorb or command, a single human choice. And it was afraid. It came in small shifts, quiet pauses, and moments where the shared mind of the Aurelian Empire hesitated instead of flowing smoothly. Elias felt it even before anyone spoke of it. The palace no longer pressed against his thoughts the same way. The awareness was still there, but it watched with care now, not control. On the morning of the seventh day, Elias was summoned again to the great chamber. This time he walked alone. No guards, no herald, just a clear path across the bridge of light and into the heart of power. His steps were steady, though his chest felt tight. He did not know what waited for him. He only knew that whatever happened next would not be small. The advisors were already gathered when he arrived. They stood in wider spacing than before, subtle distance between their presences. The shared mind that once felt like a single smooth surface now felt fractured, like ice with fine cracks running through it. The queen sat on her platform, still and calm. Elias Mar, her meaning came through, you stand here by choice. Yes, Elias said. Not all who stand here can say that, she replied. He stopped at the glowing circle again, but it no longer felt like a boundary. It felt like a meeting point. One advisor stepped forward, his presence firm but no longer sharp. The conquered watches, he said. Other psychic empires watch. They sense instability. Elias nodded. That was always going to happen. You have introduced a concept we cannot erase, another advisor added. Privacy, consent, emotional refusal. The queen raised her hand slightly and the advisors fell silent. We will not erase it, she said. We will understand it. She turned her attention fully to Elias. You have shown us that meaning changes when it is chosen, she said. Now you will answer me again. The chamber held its breath. The queen did not move closer. She did not reach for his mind. She did not touch his diary. She simply asked, her meaning gentle and open. Do you love me? Elias felt the question land differently this time. There was no pressure, no control, no expectation hiding behind power. It was not a demand. It was not a test. It was a request. He took a slow breath. He thought of everything that had happened, of fear and anger and confusion, of the queen's loneliness now clearer than ever, of the way she had stopped her advisors, had returned his diary, had chosen to wait. He answered honestly. I don't love you the way my species loves partners, he said. But I care about you, I respect you, and I want you to understand us without losing yourself. The shared mind rippled. Some advisors felt disappointment, others felt relief. A few felt something dangerously close to awe. The queen absorbed his answer completely. You did not choose the safest response, she said. No, Elias replied. I chose the true one. A long silence followed. Then something extraordinary happened. The queen smiled. It was small, almost uncertain, but it was real. The shared mind reacted violently. Shock tore through it. Confusion, fear, wonder. The queen had not smiled in living memory, not openly. Not as an expression meant for another individual. The advisors staggered back slightly as if hit by a wave. The queen raised her hand again, not to silence them, but to steady them. This is the cost of choice, she said. Discomfort, uncertainty, growth. She looked back at Elias. You have shown us that love is not possession, it is permission. Elias felt his throat tighten. Yes. The queen turned outward, her attention spreading through the palace, then beyond it, into the vast shared network of the Aurelian Empire. For millennia, she declared, we have believed unity required transparency. That control prevented pain, that privacy was weakness. Images spread through the shared mind, scenes of shared joy, shared grief, shared certainty. And yet, she continued, we have never known what it means to be chosen freely. Resistance rose immediately. Fear flared. Some minds pulled away. The queen did not force them back. From this moment, she said, thought-sharing within the empire will become optional. The chamber erupted. Mental noise surged like a storm. Advisors cried out in alarm. Some pleaded, some demanded reversal. This will fracture us, one insisted. Yes, the queen replied calmly, and from those fractures something new will form. She raised her voice within the shared mind, steady and unyielding. Privacy will be recognized as a right. Emotional access will require consent. Forced sharing will end. The silence that followed was not peaceful. It was stunned. Elias stood frozen, hardly daring to breathe. He had hoped for understanding. He had not expected revolution. The queen turned back to him. Your species will be recorded as emotional anchors, she said. Beings whose minds remain singular, whose feelings burn rather than spread. Others will seek you out. Elias blinked. That's a lot of responsibility. Yes, the queen agreed. You understand now why I asked what I did. Elias nodded slowly. You wanted to know if someone could care without being required to? The queen's silver eyes softened. And you answered. One advisor stepped forward hesitantly. What of the human's status? The queen did not hesitate. He will return home. Elias looked up sharply. Return? You were never a prisoner, she said, and you will not be a symbol bound here. Relief washed through him, mixed with sadness he had not expected. You will carry this change outward, the queen continued. Not as command, as example. The advisors did not argue this time. They were too busy adjusting to a world that suddenly felt larger and more dangerous. As Elias turned to leave, the queen spoke once more, quieter now, meant only for him. Will you visit again? Elias paused at the edge of the chamber. Yes, he said, by choice. The queen inclined her head deeply. When Elias stepped back onto the bridge, the statues along its length changed. Their empty eyes filled with soft light, not watching, witnessing. The conquered erupted within hours. Psychic species demanded explanation. Some accused humanity of manipulation. Others, more cautious, requested human diplomats immediately. Humanity responded slowly, carefully, not with weapons, not with threats, with stories. Humans shared art, music, journals, and recorded confessions. Not everything, never everything, but enough. Psychic civilizations across the stars encountered something they could not absorb instantly. Boundaries. Some rejected it violently, others hesitated, then leaned closer. On Earth, Elias returned quietly. He did not give speeches, he did not seek attention. He wrote one final entry in his diary before sealing it and placing it in a secure archive. Today, he wrote, I learned that the strongest thing a human mind can do is remain its own, even when the universe asks it to open. Far away in a palace of light above a dark glass lake, the queen stood alone for the first time in her reign. She closed off the shared mind completely. The silence was terrifying and beautiful. She thought of a human who had stood before her without power, without defense, and had still refused to surrender what mattered most. She understood now. Love was not something she could command, but it was something she could wait for. And for the first time, the Queen of 1,000 Minds chose to be alone with a single thought: hope.